In an election year where both parties, Republican and Democrat, have been anything but united, think Bernie supporters versus Hillary supporters, and Cruz supporters versus Trump supporters, we haven't even started battling between parties yet. My next guest is running for Congress on the idea that Republicans can and should appeal to people outside the traditional bounds of the Republican Party. Take a look.
中国长大，他小的时候，他的爷爷经常跟他说：“山高皇帝远。”但是，其实在美国，山一点也不高，皇帝也离我们很近。Today, the laws in Washington, D.C. cause us to pay too much in taxes. They prevent us from prospering, and they impose unfair treatment in our education and justice systems. In this year's election, we can't afford to remain uninvolved. The laws and regulations that come from Washington affect all of us, and only those who vote can change these laws. The consequences are real for our community, our businesses, schools, and most of all, our children. 但是我们唯有通过投票才能真正改变这些。Our campaign isn't about a party, and it isn't about politics. It's about a voice, our voice. We must use our voice, as Asians, as San Diegans, and most of all, as Americans. I will be your voice in Washington.
Joining me now is candidate for United States Congress in the 52nd District in California, Denise Gitsham. Denise, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Liz.
All right, let's talk about your idea. This is very, very interesting, something we talk about on the show a lot. Your idea that the Republican Party shouldn't be as divided as we are now in this current election season, that there's a way to reach out to non-traditional Republican voters, people who might identify as Democrats or who haven't thought of the Republican Party as being a party for them. Describe to us who exactly you're reaching out to specifically.
Well, I'm fortunate to be the daughter of immigrants, and so reaching out across traditional aisles is normal for me because of how I grew up. So my mother's Chinese, my father originally came from Canada, and so I think I appreciate more than most, or as like many people do actually, just how special it is that we're part of this incredible democracy and that we're able to have our voices heard. So I actually believe it's a moral imperative, not just of Republicans or Democrats, but of all Americans to reach out and not just welcome people, but to invite them to be part of this democratic process, because it's just so special that we get to have our voices heard, no matter where we came from or when we came to America. And so I think it stems from a place that's really not political. It's just more of an American feeling of we have to reach out and let people know that they're invited. But I also think that it's smart politics, if you just want to talk about that. Because in our district in particular, and we'll talk about this more later probably, but every 1 in 5 voters is of Asian descent. And many of those folks have never voted before. So of course it's natural that I would want to make sure that they understand what their options are, but also let them know that their vote counts as much as it does someone who may have descended from the Mayflower many generations ago. And that's just a remarkable thing to be a part of.
Right, and you're running for Congress in the 52nd District in California, which does have a very unique demographic.
It does.
But I've said this before, specifically as it relates to millennials, to the youth vote, who, as you know, don't vote as often or as in great of percentages as we ought to, as a general rule. But I've said those politicians who talk to us directly are the ones that get our vote, not even the ones who are talking about issues we care about. Just the ones that talk to youth get the vote. And this is the same for any demographic. But how do you plan to appeal, or what kind of plan do you foresee to make this Republican tent larger, to include more people without compromising the conservative values that are the underpinnings of our party?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, Liz. I think it is just giving people the dignity of being asked for their vote, giving them the dignity of explaining to them what it is that you stand for. And you never have to compromise who you are and what you stand for when you reach out to folks and explain to them what it is that you believe in. And I've found that to be true. I used to work for President Bush. I worked on his first campaign. And even though I'm half Chinese, I was actually asked to run Hispanic outreach. And the reason is because it doesn't matter if you're Hispanic or Asian or any African American or Caucasian, whatever your background is, you believe something about America. And whether or not you're able to articulate it or you hear someone else who does really depends on how those candidates are presenting their views to you, whatever they may be. So again, I remember President Bush always saying, you know, I will never let an opportunity go by without giving someone the dignity of asking them for their vote. And I think that's something we all need to keep in mind as candidates and just as leaders of our country, that we should be more inclusive intentionally conclusive.
Intentionally including. No, that's a great platform. So let's get down to the nitty gritty now. Let's talk about your platform. Let's talk about your vision for America. You're running for Congress because you feel that you can best serve the people of the 52nd District. What are your beliefs? What are your values?
Well, I believe that the values that we represent in the 52nd are the same as what most values that Americans ascribe to. And I'm running on a very strong platform of a national security that makes sense, strong national security, strong pro-military, and strong, smart foreign policy. That's important to me because I spent 9/11 in the White House working before, during, and after 9/11 on national security issues. So I understood the importance of leadership, not just of politicking, but of actually addressing and solving issues and looking out for our best interests as a nation. That should always be the lens that we as elected leaders look through. What is the best interest of our people? Everything else comes second. And so that's really important to me. That's one platform. The other platform is a strong pro-business platform. And that's because I'm a small business owner. But even if I weren't, I may not have understood those principles as well. But even if I weren't a small business owner who had to deal already with the onerous regulations and taxation that California presents as a state, I would still believe that it's not Washington's job to make it even more difficult to do business in America. Because without strong businesses, we can't have a strong employee base and we can't have a strong tax base that enables us to have great schools and all the benefits that we enjoy living in.
Right, and small business owners, besides being the backbone of our economy, it's a way that individuals, that entrepreneurs express their freedom. It's how we choose to make our livelihoods the way that we want them to, what jobs we choose and how we exercise that freedom. Very important. Sounds like your platform connects with what voters have said in national polls that they care about the most this election season. So Denise, I wish you the best of luck in your campaign. Thanks so much for being here.
I appreciate the opportunity.